Hey gang, I'm now in Nashville, Tennessee, South Nashville in Franklin. Very famous battle happened here that many of you probably haven't heard about, as famous as it is. We were at Stones River, and I think most of you have heard about that, but I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the Battle of Franklin. It was a pretty bloody ordeal here. It was a last gasp for the Confederate States. Well, not the last gasp, but they were trying to come from the south and from Middle State, Tennessee, and retake Nashville. And this was the point where, this is the position where the two sides would have it out, and the Confederates did not come out so well. By the way, we're at the cemetery, McGavock Confederate Cemetery, and if you look over there, you will see the house, very large house of the Carnton, and it was really a field hospital that was being used by the Confederates, and this was pretty much the line where this cemetery is. It was pretty much the line of where the Confederate forces came from the south, which is that way, and they were here by this house. And we had the other, well, I'm going to tell the story, but the first, well, we'll walk through the cemetery. I'll tell you the story. There's so much to tell here. Really interesting. Now, we're at the far eastern edge of the cemetery here, and it looks like these graves are, I'm betting these are the graves of the family of the plantation. But I wanted to give you a quick zoom of the house, and it does say, I just saw on the sign there, it does say the McGavock Family Cemetery. So that part of the cemetery here is for the family. But yeah, that has a very large front porch. On the bottom floor and the second floor, it was used as an observation post. This was the area where General Hood and his troops had marched all the way up here to take back Nashville. They were in tatters. They were in really bad shape. I mean, Hood himself had lost a leg. His arm was pretty much useless from the battles. Gosh, I think some of the soldiers didn't even have shoes. They were really trying to prolong the war. If they couldn't get Nashville, it was the last gasps, if you will. Now, what's interesting is, so this would be McGavock. Yep, let's just look at a few stones before we get into the story. There's a good view of the mansion. And here is a good view of the cemetery. And we are facing basically west. So here's the deal. They basically assembled here, and the battlefield is really right in front of us. Let me take you over there to the fence here. This is the battleground where it happened. And I'm facing to the north. They were coming from here. And this is where it happened, guys. And you see that the woods line? I believe that's where the Union forces were assembled. And what's remarkable about this is that they basically charged across this field. And I don't know the yardage. You guys can put it in comments, but as I look, it looks like a few thousand, maybe a couple thousand yards. I don't know what the exact length, but this was longer than Pickett's charge, Gettysburg, which was a famous charge I think most of you have heard of. But look at that, and as they charged out, they were just mowed down. Not a good move by the Confederate forces, and it basically decimated them. Now from here, what was left is, and I'm going to zoom in, it's not like you can really see, but it's that northwesterly direction, and that is where Carter House is, and it was high ground. And a lot of them made it to that location. And unfortunately, that is where the battle pretty much ended, with defeat on the Confederate side. Let's walk into the Confederate cemetery. I see here there is a memorial, a very sad memorial, and let's pay our respects to the enslaved people at the time. And it looks like this was a mass grave here or just a memorial. It says, known to God, here rests the mortal remains of men, women, and children of Africa, enslaved in life, freed in death. Oh, that is so sad. And here they have a description and with some pictures, because they're so poignant. Look at that. And I believe these would be pictures of here. Now, interesting picture here. It says, although this image illustrates the hasty burial, I do know that the owner of this property had them all dug up. These are I believe the Confederate graves, and had them reburied here. Can you imagine that job? How much work that would have been? But that's how much respect we have for our fallen, whether it's the Confederate side or the Union side. I see here there are a lot of small stones. These look to be unmarked. Possibly slaves, possibly soldiers, but let's go into the Confederate cemetery. And we're in. I think there's a little under 1,500 soldiers buried here. This says 89 killed at Franklin from Texas. Yeah, this is for the Texas folks. Very sad. And we have flanking on the other side, Tennessee. 230 killed at Franklin. Now Tennessee and Kentucky to some degree, they went both ways. Some were Union, some were Confederate. Of course, these are the Confederate Tennessee fighters. Look at all the graves. On and on. Now you can see here, it looks like these are the original markers. And they had put some new markers, some new granite markers down for these guys. We did that episode in New Orleans about the woman Sarah Wakeman, who dressed up as a man, and she was killed. And I just wonder if there are any here. You see these unknowns, you have to wonder, any women soldiers, don't know. But again, what I know is, I know of the women on the Union side. I don't know if there were any Confederates on record, women that fought. Let's check on that. A lot of unknowns. Here we have 130 killed at Franklin from Missouri. Look at that. And as I look ahead, I haven't walked in here yet. I like to do this stuff with you guys, take you along. It's kind of like an adventure if we do it that way, unscripted. Let's look at some of these other monuments and see what other states are recognized. But and again, as I walk, it's unbelievable. There are just so many unknowns. Look at that. That's 77. Lieutenant CCC. 78. Sergeant OGP. If you look on top, you can see. You can't see, barely can see the inscriptions. But I look down and there's just so many unknowns. No dog tags in those days, guys, I don't think. They must not have had dog tags. Arkansas, 104 killed from Arkansas. Here we have Alabama, 129 killed from Alabama. So many graves. You know, look over here. It's just all beautifully lined up. Here's Mississippi. 424 killed at Franklin from Mississippi. And look over there. There are a couple of special stones. You wonder why, you know, in the middle there's, we'll take a look. Here's Georgia. 69 killed from Georgia. Look at that tree. How old do you think that tree is? How many 100 years old? Was that tree here during the battle? You know it. Just imagine what this tree could tell you. We have here South Carolina, 51 killed. 51 killed. And there's one more here. And I want to go back and take a look at those gravestones we talked about, but let me just see what state this is. Louisiana, of course. And it says 18 killed. That's surprising. I'm sure there were more than 18 killed. Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's take a look. What's interesting is the graves in the family graveyard are pointed east for the Christians, where Jesus is going to rise. And all of these seem to be pointed west. So just a note. This is Corporal JWW. And I don't have my flashlight, but it's almost illegible. Let's walk over. I don't want to step. Now what's interesting, here's another interesting thing I just noticed, is look how close these stones are together. Literally, these men are buried shoulder to shoulder in very, very tight wood coffins, I'm sure. Remember the Rube Burrow picture? That is probably what it was like. No spare room. This is 113 Captain JTS. To the memory of James T. Smith. I think it says Smith. Yeah. Well, rest in peace, all the brave men, the soldiers, all who died here, as we look off at the old house here in Franklin, Tennessee.